even in the womb. So parenting starts from there. I would say when the child is born, you begin to instill, certain values, certain principles, certain ways of thinking and living into that child. So now, where do we go from here? If your kid is an adult, they've reached the age of majority, there's very little you can do at that time. I don't know how anybody can play catch-up parenting at age 18, because age 18, for me, by age 18, I've relaxed all my rules completely. I am depending on them to have picked on the things I have taught them prior to that time to see what they can live by. It's now up to them to demonstrate they understood the things I taught them while they were growing up. So I relax my rules completely and watch them and see how they, and see how they fly with those things. So, but for those who still have little kids, those who have children who are still, I would say that if you still want to, do some corrective work, corrective intervention, it's still possible while the child is still is not yet a teenager. Or if they're in the younger teens, you can still have those conversations and try to instill some certain values in them. That you can just do that with the help and intervention of God and prayer. You just have to be prayerful and begin to ask God to step in at that point in time. But for parents who have who have toddlers, who have younger kids, you should begin to look at, how do I want this child to look 10 years from now, 15 years from now, as an adult? How do I want this child to look?
Okay. Thank you so much, Banjo.
Sorry, you were mentioning my name. I left. Sorry. I quickly went to take a cup of tea. Sorry for that.
Okay, yes.
Sorry, sir. When I came, I asked Arumi. I was taking Madinu. Sorry, sir.
No, you are still on that. We asked what should be our next steps from the seen and perceived confusion. I'm saying perceived because some people don't see what we are saying or don't see what we're talking about in the ways that it should. It doesn't. The things that we've seen, the things don't mean what it should mean to them. Okay, we're having children who are living in a virtual world. Okay, where what they see on the internet seem to be reality. And then using those same seeming realities to interact with their parents who, number one, a lot are not living in that same virtual world that's on the internet, okay? But swallow things that they hear as this is what happens in XYZ place or places, okay? So that confusion is there. We're saying, how do we respond to this? How do we move forward and have children who would make informed decision? I mean, for some of them, the harm is done already. How do we remedy this? Dr.
Okay, that's the question.
Yes.
That's the question. Mm-hmm. If you remember, during one of the episodes, mm-hmm. I mentioned the issue of children spending much time virtually. I mentioned it as one of the problems. And also, I also remembered that I mentioned a research that by age 8, anything that your child will become, he or she has already become by the reason of research. And that parents need to do a lot of work before their child reaches the age of 8. That by age 8 is going to be really difficult for you. You are going to be forcing them if you have not done the needful before that time. And so what we see today is that children are becoming more virtual and they are losing emotion and they are becoming less detached from their environment, from the family, and what have you.
You mean more detached, doctor, not less?
They are more detached from the environment, and they are more attached to the virtual friends that are not really friends. And so they lack, that's what I was discussing before we came on air. And that's why they lack the actual solical connection. And I like the way Mrs. Banjo put it. Train your child in the way it should go. Many of the Gen X parents, they
sorry,
don't have time.
Sorry, Dr. Sarumi. We are so used to using these terms, Gen this, Gen that. Not everybody understands who the people. Can we maybe use like age ranges and then to explain so that people listening can understand who we are talking about exactly?
Okay, all right. The boomers were born between the 50s and the 64, 65.
That's us. That's ourselves.
The Gen X were born 65, between 1965 to 80, So, and these are the people who have these children. That's what I'm saying. So thank you for that. You see, children are, they are increasingly getting addicted to virtual world. And it is very due to a variety of factors. Parental care is also very important. In Africa, we are copycats. In spite of the fact that we have our own culture, we believe that when we copy the Western world, that's when we are advanced, even though we have not even gone to the airport. So you will discover that digital devices, social media platform, online games, and all other forms of digital entertainment have become the norm for parents to, seek out for their children. So I would just say that reason for this, they are quite numerous, but I believe that for the children, it is what I call instant gratification. I read somewhere in India, is it in India or in China, that they don't allow children to have phone until a certain age. But that is not the issue in most homes today in Nigeria. My wife was talking to me, was it almost a month ago, that they caught a child. She runs primary school, and you know the age of primary school. A child of 8, she brought an iPhone to the school, and during class, the phone rang, and the teacher seized the phone and took it to the head of school, and the head of school kept the phone. The parents came the second day to fight the head of school. Why should you take phone from my child? And they say, we ban phone from the school, we don't allow it. He said, then you have no right. I paid the school fees. You can imagine what that type of parent is showing to the child, talking to the head of school in such a way when what you have done to the child is against the rule of the school. And so if we have such parents, how do you think that the child will become? And I like to say, with all sense of responsibility, from 70% of those born in that age, that's the way they behave today. And therefore, what do you expect the children to be? They are going to become truant. They are going to become nuisance. They will lose emotional, they will have emotional balance. They won't have emotional agility. Because to develop emotional agility, you will need to keep relating with people, keep adapting, and ensuring that you become resilient, and situations and circumstances shouldn't shake you. And if these children have not been taught this, then what will happen? I don't know whether you read it in the papers. During this last jam, a father sat.
Yes, I saw it online. I saw the story online.
For his boy. He wrote the exam for his boy. Now, that's
an examination to get into the university in Nigeria.
Yeah. What, I mean, how did they plan it? How did they discuss it? I don't understand. It looks so, I don't know.
Well, sir, thank you so much, Dr. Sarumi. Well, we're still on that route. We're still not maybe looking at how do we get out of this. But this story about the father who went to sit for his son in an examination to get into the university in Nigeria, brings to mind another story that trended a couple of years ago about some sexual misconduct in a highbrow school in Lagos, and trended for all the wrong reasons. Just today, I was going through some materials, and that story came to mind even before we started this program. You know, and a lot of people who commented, still on social media anyway, we are talking about the challenges of living in this virtual world they're called social media now. The comments were not looking at the gaps that are created by, inadequate parenting as regards the conduct of the girl child, the boy child, the children who are involved in this story, and other innocent children, innocent in the sense that they were not, if you like,
they were spectators. They were spectators.
They were spectators.
It was in the environment, yes.
Yes, and I saw one of the videos was very repulsive. But when I looked at one of the children were like, wow, what is this? I'm like, can you imagine what trauma has been meted out to this child now? Okay. But the general society were all about the mother didn't say this, the mother, the towing the line of those parents who went to go fight the head of school over an iPhone or whatever brand of phone. People become engaged in taking sides but losing sight of the issue, the real issue of this child now. That's what got me, and this is my question. We have moved on. That child is still in society. Nobody says anybody should be killed over whatever, but then we are there. The society has moved on. The question now is, have we become numbed by these shocks to our culture, these shocks to our system when it comes to responding or things we have acquired? He said we copy, that the Africans like to copy. I beg to disagree. It's not Africans. Human beings like to copy. Okay? But the assumption is that some people like to do that more than others. The question now is this. When we are faced with commenting on such incidents or stories, bearing in mind that some of us commenting have our own children, what should we be saying to our children about those types of social shocks? Olu, please, if you can just come in here.
Oh, sorry. Please take that question again.
The question is, there are so many things that we find shocking on social media at this stage. I went back to this. There was an incident of some sexual misconduct in a highbrow school in Lagos a couple of years ago. I think it wasn't last year. I don't think it was last year. I think it was the previous year. These things happen. People comment, become trending issues on social media. But we also find out that some children don't necessarily find them funny. Okay, whereas for some, it is what it is, the way they will respond to. Now, as parents, what should we be saying to our children? Okay, whom we know have access to those stories, those kind of stories. What should we be saying to
them? Okay, I think we should give them age-appropriate information. It's impossible, if that's what I'm looking for, to hide anything right now, to shield them per se from all that the world is bombarding them with. Just a couple of days ago, my husband literally ran into the room and was trying to whisper, that there's this cartoon that he always thought was really very clean, and that my daughter is watching, and they're just talking about boyfriend and girlfriend, and she's 10, and he was literally like shocked. He couldn't just hide it, and so he ran in to come and tell me, and I just giggled. They're like, it's not funny. I'm not saying it's funny, but if you shield her from watching this here, do you know the things she talks about in school with her, with her friends? I'm not saying that we should just allow her run riot, but it's about engaging with them while they watch those things. I think the difference between us and our parents would be the fact that we should be more open to discussing so-called taboo issues or having hot conversations. We can't shy away from that. I remember when we were children, and we watched TV with our parents, then the PGs weren't stated, but we just knew that some aspects, some parts, some scenes were not for our age. But we were watching with our parents, and so when it came to a kissing scene, for example, you just take your eyes away because you just knew it was awkward for you to see people kissing and your parents are in the same room with you and you're watching the same film. And they too will give you the side eye, like, I hope you did not see that. And there was just this unspoken rule. Everybody was just literally walking on eggshells, not wanting to say anything. There was always just that elephant in the room. And the problem with elephants being in the room that are unaddressed is that after a while, the elephant takes over the entire room, and there's really no air to breathe for those of you that are there anymore. It's choking. So why should we literally replicate or repeat the same errors that our parents made? That's my opinion to me. So conversations like that, when they happen or when opportunities like that raise, are there, I think it's just an opportunity for us to have those conversations. It would be better that we had conversations before those kind of scenes pop up, but better late than never, right? As in, everything should be a coaching opportunity. Every interaction, really, every experience should be an opportunity to talk, about those
I love
issues.
the idea of everything should be a coaching,
coaching, opportunity.
like we say,
so if they're
talking,
okay,
yeah, like we say, it should be like teaching moments, okay, teaching opportunities to get our perspective known. Luckily or incidentally, we are moving from season 1 of slow parenting to season 2. And in season 2, we're going to be talking a whole lot more about sexual and reproductive health issues. So we are on track, okay? We're actually really on track. And those of us who have for ages said that parents are in the best position to be the sexuality educators of their children, we're not wrong. These are the issues, okay? Let's also have an understanding that the virtual world we are talking about is a global village that has everyone, mixed cultures, mixed everything. So you as a parent, you are in the best position to unbundle the pack and say to your children, well, this is happening out there, yes, but this is not who we are, okay? This is not who we are. Where we come from, our culture does not support this. This family to which you belong, we do not support this. So that we do not lose our identity, our children do not lose our identity, and in doing that, lose their own individual identities as well. Dr. Sarumi, talking about identities now from that perspective. Oh, rather, sorry, Mrs. Banjo, rather, sorry about that. Mrs. Banjo, talking about identity, no. That assumption that, oh, this is how they do things in Japan, this is how I'm talking about parents and children and their children living in countries like Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and say, well, this is how they do things in America, in Canada, in Britain. So this is how I should behave. Meanwhile, they've not been in those places to see of the fact that, yes, so this is how things really does happen. You have experiences from both sides, okay? As some people's children as you are growing up, and then you live outside Nigeria. Now you've lived outside Nigeria now for years, had your children outside Nigeria, like you've said, which is true, okay? So you have experiences for both sides. What's your advice for those children and their parents who are living in that virtual world that doesn't exist in terms of this is how things happen there, and they've never been there.
Okay, advice to parents who are living in a virtual reality, and they're actually they're disconnected from the reality of their own context.
Very well understood. Yes.
Okay. So, the interesting thing about Nigeria and Nigerians is that we love imported things. We just have a culture of preferring and desiring and cherishing anything that's imported. We look down on anything that's Nigerian. I don't know who are those who started that, but that's the prevalent mindset that I find in Nigeria. And I believe that for us to be able to correct this, we must start very early with our children, and let them understand that we have cultural perspectives. And if you are from a believing home, you're from a Christian family, the Bible also is also very foundational in the teachings we impart to our children. While I was raising my children, so while we were talking about our culture as Africans and Nigerians, I also emphasized scriptural culture, that it is not a culture of the Bible to be disrespectful or any of all these other things. So we start early. While Mrs. Akpaleke was talking about teaching moments. When she was talking about coaching moments, my mind was saying teaching moments. So for me and my kids, I used to watch TV with them when they were little. So some of these programs that are so-called family-friendly programs, I would sit in on them and see what things they were watching to understand, how those things would frame their consciousness and their mindsets. And I remember a particular episode of, I can't remember what family program it was. The child, they were having a discussion with the parent, and then the parents, and then the child stormed out of the room and slammed the door. And as the child slammed the door, my kids looked at each other and said, "Whoa, she can do that?" I said, "She can do that?" And then I looked at them and said, "You can never do that." Right that moment, I didn't let them sleep on it. I said, "You can never do that." Do you know why? So they looked back and said, "Why, Mom?" I said, "You can never do that." I said, "Number one, the scripture does not allow you to do that. You've heard honor your father and mother, right?" They said, "Yes." So it's dishonoring for you to walk out on me like that and slam the door. It's disrespectful. Of course, from your expressions, I can see that you were like, "Wow, you mean a child can do that?" So it's disrespectful. You cannot do that. Then where we come from, your parents are almost like your gods, if you don't know. That's our culture. So you cannot mistreat your parents. You cannot disrespect them. You cannot dishonor them. So every moment, I had these, whenever I sat with them to look at things, we would talk about it. I'll say, "Oh, what are they doing there? What is your understanding? Oh, what do you think about what happened there? Let's deconstruct that particular incident or that particular thing we're watching, just to understand how they're seeing things and the interpretations they're giving them, so that before we even move on, I can address them right away." Because even as grown-ups, when they were in high school, they would comment and say, "Oh my God, this kid is so rude." By this time, they're in like grade 10, 11, 12, and they're telling me this particular kid is very rude. I'm like, what do you mean rude? They're rude to their parents. Can you imagine? He gets into the car, he doesn't even say hello to his mom. And the mom doesn't even think it's anything. And meanwhile, he's getting into the car with that friend and he's saying, "Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon," just getting into the car, because those are the things I have taught them. So I think we need to begin to see that that virtual reality, it's virtual, it's not real. It's not the reality we have on ground. And we need to connect our children to the reality of the places where we read and the things, if we claim to be Christians, what does the Bible teach? Teach our children, and we must catch them young, because the moment you catch them young, they're kind of set for life. It's not like they will not get into spaces where they will, they will kind of like want to change their ideology. But because you have laid a foundation, when they get to those places where there are tensions, those internal tensions in terms of thinking, eventually it's what makes sense that will actually overcome. So parents who are importing everything, not everything that you're importing is good. And it's not, if they're not even getting the reality of it. I know white parents here, that their kids address them properly. They address them properly. So it depends on what you want. So if the parents tend to be very laid back and lackadaisical about, instilling good values and good cultural aspects into their lives, then they'll just lay everything on. Oh yeah, it's important. That's what's happening everywhere in the world. No, it's not happening everywhere in the world. It depends on what you want to put into your kids.
Thank you so much, Spanjo,
Can I say
for that.
something on that, sir?
Yes, exactly. I was going to just ask.
I want to add to what she has just said.
Go ahead.
It's an interesting topic when we talk about cultural differences that affect parenting, because every individual comes from a culture, and when we look at culture, as we call it, culture, it looks so small, but it's a bundle of several things, and so it's going to really affect the way you raise up your child, or even the way you behave. And I like the way Pastor Banjo, gave that example of his children. It is because Pastor Banjo demonstrated that culture to her children. That was why it seems to the children as anathema whenever they see anybody behaving contrary to the way they have been raised. I would like to say that cultural background will influence how everyone raised their children. And when we talk about culture, there are quite a few things that we need to look at. Language is one of them. But when it comes to children, food is important, discipline is important, and that's what Mrs. Banjo emphasized. Then the way people show affection. If you show affection in a wrong manner and you allow the children to become truant, then you don't really love that child. Then also in some places, sleeping arrangement, boys and girls, they sleep differently depending on. Then of course, children responsibility. And Mrs. Banjo also mentioned that some of the people that some of the Nigerian students that came under guardian, some of them cannot even wash plates. That is because in their home, where they are coming from, they have not given such child such responsibility. It's done by a housemate. So then also we're talking about how independent the children are. It will also depend on the way he or she has been trained at home. So these are all I was reading somewhere some time ago, I think it was during episode 6, about parenting styles around the world. Just like as Mrs. Banjo was talking, I was just laughing with myself. That's why I wanted to talk. When we talk about parenting style around the world, it differs, and it's because of culture. For example, I read that babies in Denmark, they stay outside their stroller while the parent will go and shop and dine, and nobody will touch that child. That's a culture. If you do it here, they will carry your child away. So, and so even babies in Norway, they put them outside to take nap while the parents go and do something else. If you do that in another clime, that child, you will not find that child back. So culture is quite very key and very, very important when we raise our children. I also read that children in Finland, they get frequent breaks from school. But in our own climes here, I think they get break only twice. It's only in new schools now that are coming up in Abuja and Lagos that children are getting break almost every 1 hour in order for them to be able to relax from studying. So in Hong Kong, they say children in Hong Kong, India, and Taiwan, what happens is that children stays up late into the night, midnight. But in our culture, by 9 or 8, you have to go and sleep. All of these, they impact the way the child grows up. I could go on and on, but I just want to stop there. That culture is very important, and
Culture is very important.
parents' culture will always affect the way they bring up their children. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sarumi. Ms. Ayopaleke, in 1 minute, okay, your passing, your closing remarks on this. We'll just wrap this up here. and then we look forward to the next episode. Mr. Paliki.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, so my thoughts in closing would just be that know what it is that you want. Because if you do not know what it is that you want, then any road will lead you there, right? So know exactly the frame. Have like Pastor Banjo said, just have an idea of the kind of person you want to raise. So you're not going to lord it over them per se, but you'll be a proper guide. So you'll be able to quickly pick up on nuances that are not looking like where you want them to be, or the kind of child, the kind of adult they will finally become. So all of those things will influence how you parent, I guess, each and every day, moment by moment, experience by experience, to determine the outlook that you would, the posture that you would have towards parenting altogether.
Thank you so much, Mr. Paliki. Ms. Banjo, your parting gift, your closing remarks for on this episode. I know there's so much to say. Okay.
I know. I just caught sight of the time now, and I was like, "Oh my God!" I just I lost track of time. Anyway, so before I log out, I'll just say this. We talk about culture. We talk about the world becoming a global village, right? And there's how do I say? There's transference. There's transference of cultures, transference of ideas. But I just want to say that we need to get to our children first before everybody else gets to them. So because it's the things that we put in them, those things that we instill in them from when they're little, that they will grow up with. They may get to places where they're having, change of minds, but, those things essentially, they become a part of them. And the earlier we do that, the better. So when we have our children, from the moment you birth that child, what do you want that child to be? Who do you want him or her to look like 20 years from now? And it starts from day one, day two, when they become conscious of the environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Banjo. Thank you, Ms. Opalike, Dr. Sarumi. Incidentally, we started this streaming today with some technical issues, but then it has been a very engaging number of minutes as we have looked at the realities of living virtually as against, the real living. But both of them are real living now. The virtual world, like for instance, this program is happening virtually. So we can't really throw away our virtual or the virtuality of our existence anymore. However, it's clear that it's very important that whether you are living virtually or terrestrially, you have a responsibility as parents to be the educator of your children. Whether we are talking cultural, religious, traditional, ethical, you have those responsibilities. Incidentally, those were the issues we started slow parenting with in season 1. And from next episode, we're going to get into the prelude for season 2, which we are going to dwell more on specific issues around sexual and reproductive health. The very important issues of sexual and reproductive health that most cultures, most homes shy away, run away from talking about, and believing the children should just pick things up on their own. But we are going to have to go into those conversations on slow parenting and other issues that have come up today. Well, one planned. Discussions are not. Don't hand our resource person script. Is okay. This is what you're going to say. So be ready from next episode, as in previous episodes, to hear things as they are concerning parenting. And for us, slow parenting is about you bringing up your children ethically. Okay, it's not as if we're not talking speed. It's not so much about speed. Having to be the one to bring up your children, give your children information, education, and the skills with which to make informed decisions when they are out there with their friends while you are not there. I thank you all very much for being with us today. And till we gather here again from different parts of the world on Slow Parenting, same time, next episode, next Wednesday. Be good, parents. Please don't be discouraged. Bye-bye.
Required in parenting. It involves setting clear boundaries and expectations.
I think slow parenting actually refers to being very intentional, all right, about your parenting style and approach, especially noting that you are stewards to your children.
Overview on slow parenting. I probably focus more on allowing the child to experience the world at a slower pace, because when we talk
parenting is a team event. It's not a 100-meter race. Okay? Parenting is a team event. Needs to be a team event. Must be a team event.